Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Just checking that audio is working and you can see me. Welcome to a soulless hotel room in London. Hope you're doing okay, everybody. Just wow, 187 people on the call already. I imagine that'll increase, but thank you for joining me. Great to have you with me. We got like 50 odd questions left in advance on the YouTube chat, and a couple of academy members and things like that have left some messages as well. So I'm still dosed up, so I may have to mute myself to cough my guts up occasionally, but that was on cue. But hopefully we'll crack on and we'll go for as long as we need. Okay, I'll probably have to end it after like 90 minutes or something in order not to prematurely pay inheritance tax. So here we go. Ready? Nick, by the way, my sort of right-hand man, Nick, is moderating the questions. Nick, I presume everything's okay. I guess you would have... So I'm getting a endpoint. I don't think that'll be a problem, though. I'm just getting a message from my IP, everything. My antivirus to tell me it's blocking, sort of, because I've got two computers on one IP address. Never mind, it doesn't matter. But it sounds like you can all hear me. Great, let's crack on. So, quite a big budget, right? A lot of people saying not so bad as expected. If you're a farmer, you probably wouldn't agree with that. I agree, Kenneth. Red wine does help. But you know what? It is what it is. So now we've got to work our way around it. Okay, so I'm going to be fairly rapid fire with these questions. Inevitably, there's some overlap, but I'll do my best to answer them as intelligently as possible. Okay. So from Ian R, a couple of questions. From 2027, pension pots will fall inside one's estate when you die. Surprise, surprise, this is the biggest sort of area of questions tonight. Does the beneficiary have to pay income tax as well as the inheritance tax? As this would effectively mean the pot would get taxed at a rate of 60% or maybe even more. Would love your input. Many thanks, Ian. Yeah, totally. It does. So what's going to happen, and please understand, this is under consultation now. This is what the government is proposing to do from April 2027, bring pensions into the inheritance tax regime. So we got a couple of years, right? But it's currently under consultation because the legislation is going to be unbelievably complex. There's inevitably going to be unintended consequences of what they're proposing to do. Little mute button. And, so there's a lot of details still to be worked out. But from what they're saying currently, yes, exactly. Inheritance tax has to be paid first, calculated and paid within 60 days of the date of death by the pension scheme. So the pension scheme pays it to the revenue, and then your estate has got what's left. That will then be passed to your beneficiaries, whoever you've chosen. And yes, depending on whether you die pre or post age 75, they may well have income tax to pay on it as well. There's a whole bunch of conflicting little things here. Lump sum and death benefit allowance, if you've got a big pension fund. Maximum tax-free amount, depending on how old you are when you die. So there's all kinds of conflicting, interlocking things to be considered here. So it's still very early days, but broad level, yes, inheritance tax first, and then if you die after age 75, income tax on anything that anybody draws. Does the change in inheritance tax, this is still Ian, so far as pensions are treated, mean that we should be thinking of different ways of using our pension fund? Are annuities going to come back into fashion, or is drawdown still the way to go? Yeah, potentially. I think more people will be drawing down more of their pensions. And we're going to be talking about gifting out of income as well. So I think more people will buy annuities for sure. Takes the amount out of the estate. But we need to remember, as punitive as inheritance tax is, there's still something left for your beneficiaries, even if it's only 60% minus any income tax of what it was. Okay, so it's not as good as it was, but it's still something. Whereas you buy an annuity with the whole pot, the value's gone. Victoria H. My question is, will pensions be included in calculating the tapering of the nil rate band allowance for estates over 2 million? You've got some detail to it there, but it's actually a brilliant question, Victoria. And the answer is I don't know. I've not been able to find that out yet. So this is the tapering of the residence nil rate band, the additional nil rate band that you get if your total estate is over 2 million at the date of death. It's tapered by £1 for every £2 of the value of your estate over 2 million. So once you get to over 2.35 million, you don't have a residence nil rate band left. So Victoria's question is, are pension funds included in that 2 million quid? And the answer is I don't know. Been looking for that. It's a great question, but I don't know yet. That's one of these things that still has to be worked out. That would be, well, it would raise more tax for the revenue, so you've got to probably think so. But I imagine, I would like to think that's an unintended consequences, but maybe it's intentional. So, yeah, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. Peter L. Does the increasing taxation of GIAs and the complexity of managing them make onshore bonds more attractive? Correct me if I'm wrong, but 5% income tax-free, capital growth tax-free. If written into trust, I believe they can be outside your estate now that SIPs won't be, and also outside care home fee assessment. Okay, need to clarify a couple of things here, Peter. So the increasing taxation of GIAs is simply the increase to the capital gains tax rates. So it was 10 and 20%. GIA's general investment account, for those of you that don't know. Now it's 18 and 24, right? So you're paying any gain you make over the annual exempt allowance is now 18% if you're a basic rate taxpayer, 24% if you're a higher rate or additional rate taxpayer. So, that is what it is, okay? Complexity of managing GIAs, I don't know that they're that complicated, really. It's just a pot with funds in, or shares usually. Onshore bonds are different beasts. I need to correct you a couple of times. You do say correct me if I'm wrong. I'm afraid you are on a couple of points. So 5% is income tax free. It's not. It's income tax deferred. Okay, so you may pay income tax on that money down the line. So you can take out 5% of whatever you put into an onshore bond without any immediate liability to income tax. So it's not strictly tax-free. I would get in trouble for saying tax-free. I have to say tax deferred. Okay, but you've got to remember an onshore bond pays 20% income tax within the thing. So it's not tax-free. Growth is not tax-free. Any growth that the bond enjoys is charged to 20% income tax, essentially. Now, an offshore bond, that's not true. You get gross roll-up there. There's no tax as you go along. With an onshore bond, if you withdraw more than the 5%, then you could potentially pay income tax, but only if those withdrawals take you into the high rate tax band. So onshore bonds, I think, are a lot more complicated to manage than GIAs. They're tricky little buggers, really. So if they're written into trust, then yes, they're outside your estate. It's usually a gift, so you've usually got a 7-year rule. You can use something called a discounted gift trust, which has an immediate reduction to inheritance tax. But you know what? They're complicated animals, so tread carefully. And usually with an investment bond, you have to work through an advisor. So that's an additional cost that you might not want to bear. Now over 450 of us on the call. Welcome, everybody. If you've not done a live call like this before, that's because I don't do them very often. I do them monthly inside Meaningful Academy, but I thought I'd make this one public given it's the budget. So thanks for joining me. Hope you're all okay. Question from Peter B. Hi, Pete. Like many, I will have to rethink how and when I draw down a DB pension. I think you mean DC there. Because my plan had been to leave it untouched to be inherited by my daughters. Definitely mean DC. If I now start to withdraw regular or annual amounts from the pension to reduce it down, the impact would be to increase my income to be in excess of what I need. I'm already using the excess income gifting rules. Would these future DC withdrawals count as me generating income, which I would then use to increase the amounts of regular gifting, or would these pension withdrawals have to be converted to an annuity to count as income? It does feel as if the regular gifting rules may be yet another target for future budgets, as people like myself try to manage our affairs within the exemptions currently permitted. Peter, yes, you're right, essentially. So if you increase your DC pension withdrawals, that is deemed to be income out of which you can make regular gifts from income under the exemption. All right, remember, there's 3 things got to be true for that gifts from exemption to apply. It's got to come from income, so it can't be capital withdrawals, but flexi-access pension withdrawals, as long as they're regular, are deemed to be income. So it's got to be from income, not capital. It's got to be regular, by which there's legal precedent to say that as long as the intention is for it to be regular, and you can prove that, or your executors can, then you'll probably get away with it. But remember, the gifts from income exemption is claimed on death, so you need to keep very good records. So Gift made out of income, not capital. It's got to be regular or intended to be regular. And then the third criteria is that it must not decrease your standard of living. All right, so if you can tick all those three things, then any gifts you make under the gifts from income exemption should be IHT free immediately. Robert Y. Hope you're feeling much better, Pete, following your cold. No, I'm not, but I am dosed up. Thank you, Robert. Sorry, another budget IHT pension-related question. I'm retired and have been taking off-plus withdrawals, although still in consultation. Does it just make sense to take the 25% tax-free element now, given your pension will be liable for IHT on death and if over the threshold? Does it impact the order of deletion, i.e. whether you take from your ISA or pension in retirement now, or as another has mentioned, perhaps annuities will make a return? At the end of the day, I guess the answer is to just spend it and keep below the threshold. I think order of withdrawals is going to be individual situation dependent, because obviously anything you draw from a pension is going to be charged to income tax. So, you've got like a tax now versus a tax when you die. So I think taking the tax-free cash element, that doesn't fix anything for inheritance tax purposes, because now you've got a wad of cash sitting in your bank, or you ISA it or whatever, unless, of course, you give it away. So you take the tax-free cash element from your pension, you give it away to your kids or your, favourite cleaner or whatever, and you live 7 years and it's outside of your estate. Simon H. Now that DC pension pots are inside your estate, there's a theme here, folks. Do you think annuities for the over 75s will become more popular in conjunction with potentially exempt transfers as a method to reduce an IHT bill? Well, yeah, maybe. It's a bit like sledgehammer to crack a nut, that. You buy an annuity, particularly if you're over 75, you convert your whole pension fund to an annuity, nice hefty income because you're over 75, and you give that away. That's cool and everything, but it's still dependent on you living long enough to get enough back in annuity income to sort of earn what you've given over to buy the annuity. So if you've got £500,000 pension fund, say, for example, and that's gone on day one because you bought an annuity with it, you're over 75, now you've got, 50 grand a year worth of income coming in, you're paying tax on it, some at higher rate probably, and you're making gifts out of the net income. You've got to live 10 years at least to get that back. So you probably wouldn't get 50 grand a year. You've got to live 10 years, haven't you? But more than that, once you factor in income tax. So we got to be careful not to be too sledgehammer here. We got to be a little bit more nuanced. I think any good advisor, which I like to think I am, should always be considering annuities for anybody at retirement and continually throughout retirement. Sometimes it just makes sense to secure an income. But I think I would do that for income needs first, and as an IHT play, sort of second priority, if you like. Okay, loads and loads of questions, okay? So I'm like 10 questions in out of the 50 that were left before we even went live, so we're going to be here a while. But thanks for joining me, everybody. It's great to have you with me. My son, Suzanne M. If you were capped at 2,880 pension contributions and you had maxed out your ISA allowance, what would your next best way be to save for retirement? I would probably just GIA that money, Suzanne. Just, you're not going to get the tax breaks. For regular payments, definitely I would do that. You could look at VCTs, venture capital trusts. You get 30% tax relief, but then only subject to the income tax that you've already paid. You can't get more tax relief than tax you've paid, sort of thing. So, all that being equal, I would probably just opt for a GIA. Right? ENS, my son is 21 years old and a couple of years into his apprenticeship. He would like to get on the property ladder outside London in the next 5 or 10 years. Would you recommend a lifetime ISA or a stocks and shares ISA or something else as the deposit saving vehicle? I would suggest a lifetime stocks and shares ISA, or to put it another way, a stocks and shares lifetime ISA. You get the government bonus up to 4,000 quid a year you put in, gets made up to 5 grand if you put the whole amount in. Stocks and shares ISA, get it invested. Given his 5 to 10 year time scale, you can afford to take some risk with the money. Remember, it's intelligent risk. Grow the money quicker than it will in the bank, right? That's what I would do. Follow-up question is, the younger generation are really difficult to engage with anything associated with financial planning for their future. You're in the lift to a rooftop bar with a 21-year-old. What would be your elevator pitch? Not budget related, this one, Ian, but simply what I generally do if ever I spoke to kids is ask them if I could show them a way to guarantee them to be wealthy one day, would they be interested? There's no, well, I might win the lottery, I might make it into a football academy, I might go viral as a YouTuber. There's no sort of maybe if I'm lucky, but if I could guarantee that you would be wealthy one day, would you want me to show you what that is? And needless to say, generally people will say yes. And it's just harnessing the power of compounding and investing in the great companies of the world. It works every single time and has done for generations. So that's what I would say. Might not work, but that's what I would say. Kate, when calculating the high charge for child benefit in my next tax return, will HMRC use my income before expenses or the figure after expenses to see what my charge will be? That would suggest that you're self-employed. If you're self-employed, then it's whatever your profit is. That's what your income is for the year, and that's the figure that will be used. So it would be after expenses. But if you're employed and you've got a salary, then it's your gross salary. Kiki, how do we reduce the new IHT bill? Well, the methods for reducing IHT haven't really changed. Okay, they're not. Some of them are not quite so efficient as they were. There are 4 methods to reducing your inheritance tax bill. Spend it. Right? Spend it on experiences, not stuff. So you're not just converting cash for houses or cars or whatever, right? So spend it on experiences. Give the money away. There's a load of exemptions. None of those have changed, right? So give the money away. Make gifts big and early enough to make a significant difference. Use all the exemptions you can. You can take out life insurance for the inheritance tax liability. I see more people will do this. I can see people drawing down more from pensions in order to pay premiums for life insurance, to pay inheritance tax. Why not? Okay. So spend it, give it away, take out life insurance. And the third one is business property relief. Now, this is one of the things that was attacked in the budget. Currently, as things stand at the minute, until April 2026, if you have an asset that qualifies for business property relief, or more properly called business relief now, then that is outside your estate. As long as you hold it for 2 years and you still hold it at the date of death, then it's outside your estate with no upper limit. Or rather, it's inside your estate, but it's 0 rated for inheritance tax after 2 years. As of April 2026, it's only going to be the first £1 million that is, 0 rated for inheritance tax. But that's still not bad. It's not as good as it was. But for a lot of people, that's going to be enough. And even on anything you hold in excess of that, instead of paying inheritance tax at 40%, you're going to pay it at 20%, 50% relief. So those 4 methods of reducing inheritance tax have not changed. Spend it, give it away, think about life insurance, use business relief. Claudia, if I have started to draw down for a SIP but want to keep contributing the 2880, how do I do it and avoid pension recycling? It's not pension recycling, it's pension tax-free cash recycling, okay? So there are rules about pension tax-free cash recycling. There's like a little flow chart. If you search the YouTube channel for pension tax-free cash recycling, you'll find a video I did on it. And in the description of that, there's a link to a flow chart, which basically says, it gives you like 5, I think, factors. And if any one of them is a yes, then it is pension tax-free recycling, tax-free cash recycling. So check it out. Just search the channel. Nicholas T, IHT planning. Now that DC pension pots are included in the estate, what are the best approaches to manage the IHT charge? Answer this one really. Could children hold a life insurance policy to cover the IHT charge, avoiding the use of a trust? Is there a market for joint life second death term insurance policy? Term, assuming whole of life policies will be very expensive and the rules could change in the future. Generally speaking, in order for somebody to hold a life insurance policy on another, there's got to be an insurable interest. I'm not sure, given that, I need to check this actually, but given that inheritance tax is paid by the estate before the beneficiaries get the money, right? I'm not sure that would qualify as an insurable interest. I kind of feel like it should, but generally speaking, it's the generation that's going to pass on the money that take out the insurance and put it in trust. But it's the same deal, right? The insurance goes into trust, pays out fairly quickly. pays the revenue, so the tax is covered, which leaves the estate intact to pass to the beneficiaries. So I don't think that's changed. Not really. Um, you know, unless the kids really want to pay it. I've suggested this many times over the years to families. I've said, look, if your kids are going to end up indirectly paying £500,000 inheritance tax bill, of course it's the estate, not the kids that pay it, then maybe they want to pay for some life insurance for you, and it's always met with sort of snorts of derision. So go figure. Basically, people want the benefit of life insurance without wanting to pay the premiums. Anne, I have a small SIP, about 50 grand. I draw down from my ISAs for additional spend. My living expenses are covered by DB pensions. The SIP was only going to be touched when the ISAs are depleted, as it would be outside inheritance tax. With the budget changes, should I rethink on where to draw my money? Present needs first, inheritance tax second. So if you draw off your SIP and you're getting paid a DB pension, which covers your expenses, you're going to pay at least 20% income on anything you draw. So why definitely throw away 20% income tax now when you can keep drawing from your ISAs? It's up to you. You could say maybe you could draw from your pension up to the higher rate tax, so you only pay 20% on it. Depends on your situation, but I wouldn't lose any sleep over that, Anne. Lava, with the new inheritance tax rules, how does that affect inheritance from abroad? My parents live in Republic of Ireland and have true properties and assets there. Me and my brother are on their wills, so with me living in the UK, would UK inheritance and capital gains tax rules apply for anything I inherit? No, because your parents are in the Republic of Ireland. It's their estate. Once you've inherited it and you're living in the UK, if you die, then it's UK rules that apply, but not when you get it from your parents. Also, can I ask the same for a pension? My parents have a private pension in Ireland as well. I have no idea about Irish private pension rules. Sorry. Lava. Ryan, how does the autumn statement relate to the spring budget? It's not an autumn statement, it was an autumn budget. I don't think we're having a spring budget, not that I'm aware of. Might the lifetime allowance yet be returning? Hopefully not. They promised it wouldn't, but they've made other promises. It feels like investors got off lightly. Yeah, potentially. I think a lot of investors thought it was better than it could have been. Barry, hi Pete, as DC pensions will no longer be exempt from inheritance tax, does the previous sequence in which it made sense to draw down from investment wrappers, ISA, GIA, then SIP, does it not apply? It's going to be individual, this, but I'll address this once the dust has settled a bit more, I think. It's going to be very much down to individual circumstances and needs some modelling to be certain, so I'm going to pass on that one, Barry, for now. Hi Pete, this is Michael S. On pensions and IHT, for estates over the couple's tax-free limit of £1 million, including property, does it make sense to draw pension quicker or sell property and put it into trusts if able? Again, individual situation specific. So what you're saying, you draw from pension more quickly. So does it make sense to draw pension quicker or sell property and put it into trusts? Very much an individual situation thing. Ultimately, obviously everybody's up in arms about pensions now being subject to inheritance tax, right? It always used to be sort of that way, right? It's only since 2015 that pensions have been quite so attractive for passing money down to generations. So it didn't really make sense for pension death benefits to remain quite as beneficial as they were, right? So everybody's up in arms in it, but most people are like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. So I think it's going to require more planning, shall we say that? All right, I think is all I can say. Hi Pete, will private pensions that take the estate above 1 million inheritance tax limit now be taxed twice? IHT to the estate and income tax for the person receiving funds? Yes, if the person who dies after age 75. Right? If they die before 75, the tax treatment of the fund has not changed. The income tax treatment hasn't. Inheritance tax has. So IHT gets paid first, then depending on whether you're under or over age 75, that determines the tax treatment on transfer to the beneficiaries. Hitchjack. Hi Pete, will private pensions that take the estate above... Oh no. Jeff A. When will Voyant Go be updated? So for those of you who are not in my academy, Voyant Go is the financial planning software that I use every day with my clients, but I also make available in Meaningful Academy. There's usually sort of 2 updates a month. One is like a little bug fix, and then there's a sort of major update towards the end of each month. Given the scope of the budget changes, I'd be kind of surprised if they kick in at the end of November. I want to say it's more likely to be at the end of December. Might not seem very quick like that, but there's a lot of testing needs to be done to make sure. Bear in mind, there's a ton of money riding on professional cash flow models done by people like me for my clients, right? So they're not going to issue an update and it be wrong. So they will take that time. I want to say I'm hoping for the end of November, but I think it's more likely to be the end of December. James B. Hi Pete, I'm now considering withdrawing from my pension up to the higher rate tax threshold each year and putting anything above the usual withdrawal amount in an ISA. Can you see any downsides? Why would you pay income tax on it and then put it in an ISA? Because it's growing tax-free in the pension and it'll grow tax-free in an ISA. But take it from pension into ISA, you're paying 20% on that transaction. So you're chucking away a fifth of your money just to move it from one tax-free environment to another. ISAs are inheritance taxable, so a pension's inheritance taxable. So you haven't achieved anything except for losing a fifth of your money. So I wouldn't do that. Jeff, if someone is taking the Off Plus route for drawdown, does that one reduce the amount of pension contributions still possible? Or is it subject to the 2,880 per year? As with the MPAA route, you're getting your terms a little bit confused here, Jeff. So if you're taking Off Plus, right, UFPLS, uncrystallized fund, pension lump sum, withdrawals from your pension, each one of those withdrawals is 25% tax-free and 75% taxable to income tax. You have now triggered the money purchase annual allowance, and all that does is it limits your annual pension contribution now to 10,000, not 2,880. That's an irrelevant figure in this context. So your money purchase annual allowance is 2,800, £10,000, not 2,880, right? If you're drawing using Off Plus. Robert, now pensions including IHT. Do you want to withdraw money from DC pension in the most tax efficient way, and any money not spent from drawdown put into ISA? Same question as James, really. No, I wouldn't do that. So that the investment growth is not taxed is the end of the question. Investment growth is not taxed in a pension either. Ian W. Hi, should I spend my SIP and delay withdrawing my DB pension, thereby avoiding the actuarial reduction to avoid inheritance tax? I already have an inheritance tax problem without pensions included. I think, Ian, yes. I could say yes, but I can't tell you what you should do. I'd say you should consider it, right? So this would be a perfect scenario to model in Voyant once it's updated to reflect the budget changes. So I would definitely look at, say, instead of taking your DB scheme early, leave it till the normal scheme date, and then think about supplementing your income and meeting your needs with DC withdrawals for a bit. Definitely, I would look at doing that. Right? That would make sense, I think, because you get the singular benefit of reducing your IHT issue. And obviously you'll get a higher DB pension because you've deferred it. Kate, hi. Will the new child benefit high income charge go off a sole trader's gross income or after expenses have been deducted? Sole trader, so you're self-employed, so it'll be after your expenses. So basically, whatever you are putting on your tax return is after your expenses, right? So you make 50 grand as a sole trader, cost you 20 grand to do the job. Your profit is 30,000. That's the income. That's the figure that will be used for child benefit high income charge. Dorian, should one now prioritize the stocks and shares ISA over paying more than the employer match into a pension or SIP? Would being just over the higher rate tax threshold change one's opinion? I would still prioritize a pension. Look, one of the things that I'm really glad she didn't screw up in his budget was pension tax relief on contribution. There's still no better plan out there. You can still get tax relief at your full rate. So if you're a higher rate taxpayer, or on the threshold of being, you're getting 40%. Instead of paying tax on that money, it's going into your pension. You might pay inheritance tax down the line, but that's decades away Get the benefit now and get the benefit of the tax relief. Pensions every time, right? They're not quite so cool as they were, but they're still very, very beneficial. Raj, do you think we should look to withdraw 25% tax-free from DC pension pots, especially if this will take you close to the 268,275 limit, and then move the rest to flexi drawdowns? No way I'm going to say what you should look to do, Raj, I'm afraid. That's definitely an individual situation thing. It seems to me very broad brush that. The number of people, interestingly, there was a article, I think, in the FT today, somebody bemoaning the fact that they took 25% tax-free out of their pension based on rumours in the run-up to the budget. Well, that was bloody stupid, wasn't it? Right? Don't ever make big decisions based on rumours. That's your first lesson there. But I don't know why you would draw 25% out of your pension. There's no point. I mean, first of all, right now, if you die before April 2027, it's better in your pension than not. Okay? Now, after April 2027, we can make a call. Maybe we take that 25% out and we drop it into an ISA. We're no better or worse off there. It's subject to inheritance tax, whichever pot we're in. But I would definitely wait until 2027 before doing that. Let it all pan out and we'll see exactly where it is. There's a lot can happen in that time. But there's, what difference does it make? It's growing tax-free, whether it's in your pension or your ISA. It's subject to inheritance tax after April 2027, whether it's in your pension or your ISA. So take it out if you need it, but don't do it for tax reasons. Right? Take it out and give it away. That's how you will reduce your inheritance tax bill. I got a little bit soapboxy. Very sorry about that. Mark. Hi, Pete. Your first thoughts on DC pension planning strategy now that will come with IHT? I think we talked about that quite a bit. SIP's still a good tax shelter, but flexibility to make large pets potentially exempt transfers. Compromised by income tax considerations. Yes, agree with all that. I think people will probably still do it, though. Get some exemption, probably rather than large pets. If you draw down from a DC pension, can you keep the lump sum invested? Or does it have to go into cash? If the former, could there be value in keeping a lump sum for possible pets? Yeah, if you take your tax-free cash lump sum, you can invest it, just not inside a pension. So you can whack it in a GIA, ISA it over time, that's all fine. You can do that and then give out of it whenever you want. So definitely you can do that. Some videos in future using Voyant, exploring different scenarios based on the new pension rules would be very helpful, definitely. I reshot 44 Voyant videos a couple of weeks ago. They're yet to be updated on the Academy, but they will be in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Leighton. Whew, this is question number 32 out of... We're on 90. Nick, well done for transferring these for me. This is amazing. I think once I get to about 50, I can add them onto the screen so you can read them. So I don't just... I'm reading them out. But anyway, here we go. Jeremy. Hi, Pete. If you put money into a junior ISA and or a SIP for a child or grandchild, or pay their university fees and living costs, do some or all of these amounts fall within the scope of IHT? Yeah, potentially, if it's regular, right? It's not what you put it into, it's what you give and how you give it. So, if it's a lump sum, it's a potentially exempt transfer. 7-year rule. Most people understand that. You make a gift, then you have to wait 7 years and it's fully outside your estate. You can give 3,000 quid a year with no implications at all, right? If you didn't do that last year, you could also use last year's and carry forward 1 year. The gifts from income exemption is the most powerful one if it's a regular income, regular gift, and if it's made from income. So definitely look at that. Paul T. I have a small business. From that, I used to draw 12,570. I pay no national insurance on this. How have things changed now? So Paul, you don't say how you draw it. So if you draw it as a salary, then you won't have paid any national insurance on it. The company, though, will. Hang on. Just got to get the numbers a minute. Hang on. Employers' national insurance rates is what I'm looking for. It's the employers of employees who are under 21 pay zero rate up to this point. God, too many. There you go. Secondary. So it's 758 quid a week. Just add that up a minute. 758, not a week, month. So if you were, that's better, right? Sorry about that. So if you were drawing 12,570 from your business, Paul, you weren't paying any employee national insurance, but your company was paying employers' national insurance. The company will now pay more. All right, that's what's changed because the threshold has dropped from 9,100 and something down to 5,000. So any income above 5,000 from next year, your company will pay more national insurance. That's if it's drawn as salary. If you're just taking it as a dividend, then national insurance doesn't apply anyway. Fraser, can a SIP be transferred into a bare trust? Ooh, great question. With a non-spouse beneficiary and avoid inheritance tax hit. So this is called a spousal bypass trust. Or just a bypass trust these days. So pensions, as most of you know, are held under a sort of a master trust arrangement. So they're sort of not. Peter, you said don't forget employers' allowance. You're dead right. Paul, employers' allowance as well. So there is. That's up, isn't it? That's up to 10,000. Good job, Peter. Thank you. It has. It's gone up to 10,000. So Paul, you will only pay national insurance, I believe, now on the 2,570. Thank you, Peter. Just happened to spot that. Kevin says, I think you should do more of these. Well, there's 665 of you on the call, so clearly going down well. So maybe I will. Let me know if you want me to do more of these in the future. Okay. So back to Fraser's question about SIPs being transferred into a bare trust. So normally a pension is not in any kind of, it's not subject to your will or your estate. It's held under kind of master trust. That has not changed since the budget. Okay. What did I say was bloody stupid, Alex? Sorry, I really must not get distracted by the comments. But you can opt to have your pension pot paid into a trust instead, right? Now, the reason you do that primarily is control. Remember, a pension is subject to the whims of the pension trustee. So that's the pension company. They get to decide who to pay it out to. You complete an expression of wishes, and they decide whether to honour it or not. They do in 99% of cases. So unless there is clear reason for them not to honour it, they will send the pension to whoever you want. But it's an expression of wishes, it's not binding. Some pension companies will allow you to make a binding instruction. I want you to pay my pension into this trust that I have set up in my lifetime or that I have set up in my will. Okay? So you can do that. Why would you do that? Well, control. So maybe you quite often see it where you've got second relationships and you've got kids from previous relationships and stuff. And so you're now remarried, you've got a pension, you want your husband to sort of benefit from it while he's alive if you die first, but you've got kids from previous marriage and you want them to be looked after as well. So there's a kind of spousal bypass. It bypasses the spouse or it goes straight into trust. So rather than be passing straight to them, it goes straight into the trust. You can still allow for the spouse to benefit inside the trust, right? But you get a lot more control. The downside is that, well, let's just think this through. Firstly, after April 2027, inheritance tax will still apply. It won't avoid IST. The tax will be paid and it will go into the trust after tax is paid, inheritance tax. If you die before age 75, there will be no further tax on transfer into the trust. All right. If you die after age 75, there will, and it'll be at 45%. Okay, so you'll have paid 40% inheritance tax probably, and then you pay a further 45% on what's left when it transfers into the trust. Any income produced while that money's in the trust is going to be taxed at 45%. Trusts, I talk people out of trust 99% of the time. They are rarely the right thing to do. They serve a purpose, but generally for much larger estates, much more complicated issues, where people can afford to pay, highly paid lawyers and accountants to do the donkey work for them. So the short answer to your question, Fraser, is yes, you can, but be careful. Hi, Pete. With interest rates widely predicted to reduce, why are bond yields on the increase? Because the government announced an increase in borrowing. When a government announces an increase in borrowing, it means they're going to issue more gilts, issue more of anything supply is increased, right? Which means prices fall. When prices fall, yields go up. That's like the summary version. So basically, more borrowing means more gilts in issuance, right? Which means that, it's like anything. If you flood a local area with identical property, it becomes a buyer's market, so prices fall. Okay, yields, which is the kind of the interest paid on a gilt or on a bond, are inverse. They behave inversely to prices. So if prices go down, yields go up. That's why. Michael, double tax of IHT plus beneficiary income tax. Is there upper bound to feeding pensions and consider other options? Property, used residential no rate bound, VCTs, offshore bonds, insurance policies? Yes. Right? Yeah, yes. The rules for inheritance tax planning haven't changed, or the ways you do it, just some of them are less attractive than they were. Oert. Hi, Pete. If I die before 75, can my spouse inherit my pension fund without the tax? The same as the rest of my estate, or will this now be subject to IHT? No, there'll be no IHT within spouses. Still. Hi, Pete. Would DB pensions be affected by the IHT charge? I have in mind a spouse's entitlement to 60% after first death. As there is no pot with DB, I assume this is outside the estate. I believe so too. I mean, spouses anyway, so there's no inheritance tax within spouses. Some DB schemes, there is a kind of a death grant. So a lot depends on when you die, pre or post retirement. Okay, so there's lots of devil in the detail there, Gary. Paul. So it depends how and when you die, not how you die. Different IHT rules if you fall off a cliff than if you sort of, die a slow death in hospital or whatever. No, don't be stupid. But if you die pre or post retirement, it's going to make a difference and is scheme dependent. Michael, so I'm on question 40, right? I've not even quite finished the questions that were left before we went live. We're 42 minutes in. We're on 103 questions and going. So I'm just going to pause and just skip back through some of the questions. Man, I'm live. Pete's keeping you informed of how I'm doing on the question. Just as I spot it, Keith, is there likely to be Black Friday offer on training courses? Yes, absolutely. We're pre-signaling that this year. So if you're interested in the academy, it's worth you hanging on a few weeks. It's going to be the best deal of the year. If you're not on the mailing list, go to meaningfulmoney.tv. Little thing pops down from the bottom. Just put your name and email and address there. Join the email list. We're going to start pre-signaling Black Friday on this Friday. So we're going to send out 2 or 3 emails, and anybody that's interested in joining, read the emails. Okay, but yes. Plenty of people saying thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it. John, will this be recorded? Yes, YouTube will have it available. Alistair, thank you for being here. Alistair Ford, the man behind Meaningful Coaching. Tons and tons of questions. Tom Wigan. Tom, do you see equity release being used as an IHT tool going forward if pensions are included in estates? Yes. I presume that's the Tom Wigan that works for me. Hi, Kathy Body. Good. Great. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks for the comments. Just trying to rattle through the questions as quickly as possible. How are we doing? Right. Question 40. Do pension annuities now become more attractive over drawdown given IHT and suspected future pension rates / government interference? 'Twas ever thus, right, Michael? So pensions have always been a political football. Yes, potentially. But again, don't let the tax tail wag the dog, right? Okay. Even after inheritance tax, and even if you die after age 75, still your family get to inherit something, as opposed to nothing if you bought an annuity. So maybe something's better than nothing. So don't, let's not rush to sort of chop in our pension fund and just buy an annuity. Adrian, hi Pete, I cashed in my final salary pension so I could pass it on to my long-term partner, not married, and children, and draw down flexibly. Yeah, I now feel screwed by the government. I understand that, Adrian. I think a lot of people have done that. massive decision to transfer a DB scheme into a DC scheme, but by far the biggest reason people did that was death benefits. Again, they're still better than DB death benefits. They will still get something, but definitely a lot less attractive now. You just now need to rethink things, okay? It's still probably better. It's not as good as it was. Death benefits are still better than they would have been had you stayed in the DB scheme, but it's time to rethink. Take a breath. We've got 2.5 years before we need to worry about this. We've got to start thinking about it sooner rather than later, but, it'll be okay. Ian W., if you have both DB and a DC scheme, can you take more than 25% from the DC, assuming it is no more than 25% of both schemes? No, you can't. It's no more than 25% of each scheme, unless the scheme itself has special rules. But it's not like a lump it all together and take 25% of the whole lot, but draw it from one plan. It's scheme dependent. Ian W., if you have both Justin, will a Conservative government overturn the IHT on pensions plan for April 2027? I don't know. Is there any way to stop Labour from implementing the change to pensions? No. Well, I mean, you can talk to your MP, but I suppose it make much difference. It's under consultation. So I guess you can reply to the consultation. I don't know. But I don't know what the future Conservative government will do. All right. Don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately. Hi, Pete. Are there any obvious or not so obvious planning strategies? This is Chris T. For those with DC pensions, giving similar retirement cash flow but providing less exposure to IHT. Planning strategies? No, I mean, you can spend it. It's a lot of fun. You pay income tax, though. But no, not really. It's going to be, I think, increasingly individual situation specific. I mean, it always has been, but I think now there's going to be, I think that the nuances are going to be very individual situation specific. So whether you should do this, and this for your reasons, but a person in a different situation might do something totally different. So I don't think that's changed. I think it's just more the case now. Glyn, hi Pete. Hope you're well rested after your holidays and feeling better. Rested, yes. Feeling better, no. I was wondering whether you see any issues regarding fractional shares in an ISA as a consequence of the budget. Not that I'm aware of, Glyn. Blue Angel, will pensions left to spouses still be exempt from IHT? Yes, they will. Harry S. Hi Pete, you rock. Thank you, Harry S. So do you. Thanks for everything. You're very welcome, Harry S. For an estate that inherits a DC pension and has to pay inheritance tax, will the remainder still be liable to marginal tax on drawdown by the beneficiary? Yes. Assuming the donor dies after age 75. Kichi Joji. Hi, Pete. I assume this is not possible, but are you able to gift your pension to your children as long as you live 7 years? This would avoid the new IHT rules. Thanks. No, it'd be great, that, wouldn't it? But no, Kichi Joji, you can't give your pension to anybody, not while you're alive. Peter W. Hi, Pete. Thanks for the great content. You are welcome. What are your top tips for first-time parents of a brand new baby? I mean, financially, of course, to set the baby up financially for life. Well, the main vehicles you can save for them are obviously Junior ISA and Junior SIP. So you can pay into a pension for them. If you really want to set them up for life, then, they get tax relief. So you can pay $2,880 into a pension for them per year, and that gets made up to 3,600 quid. It's not bad, really, given they're not paying any tax. So you do that. You can do that for as long as you want. It's a gift out of regular income for you, probably. And, they can't touch that money. Allays lots of people's fears about 18-year-olds not being trusted with large sums of money because they're not going to be able to get it until at least their late 50s. So that's always a good plan. Junior ISA, whenever people say, oh, I don't want to have it in my kid's name because I don't know if I'm going to trust them or not, I would say do a bit of both. So use a Junior ISA, they're a great idea. But your kid it goes into the child's name at age 16 and they get actual access to the money at age 18. I would use that as a 2-year training window to teach them how money works and how investing works. So I wouldn't shy away from it. I mean, if you're really worried about your kid being a total waster, going nuts with the money in their Junior ISA when they hit age 18, then keep some money outside of a Junior ISA, or just, kick them out and disinherit them. But I think I really like junior SIPs. I really like junior ISAs. But with the ISAs thing, with them getting in control at age 18, I would use that to teach them. Look at these funds you hold, right? You've got a new iPhone for your 18th birthday. Do you know you've got shares in Apple, right? In this fund, because it's a global tech fund or it's a global equity fund. And teach kids how investments work. I think it's an amazing opportunity to do it with real money. Edward, I see a number of questions around Voyant changes to this budget. Again, Voyant is the planning tool that I use every day with clients and that we offer in the academy. Is it just configuration, i.e. retweaking the data, or are there some deeper changes needed? Yeah, Voyant need to make a change at their coding end to reflect the new tax rules after 2027. That will happen probably by the end of December, hopefully by the end of November. David C. Hi, Pete. Was there any changes in gifting rules in the budget? Nope. Phil. Hi, Pete. Hope you're well. Thank you. I was wondering how the employer's national insurance change affects the salary sacrifice pension AVCs that I make. The pension is hybrid DBDC. AVCs go into the DC pot. I don't think it has changed. It's just your employers will save more. So you could always ask them to bung some of it in the pension for you. But that's the only change. The rules, the principles haven't changed as a result of the budget. Hello, Pete. Are life insurances in trust still outside of the estate and free of inheritance tax? Yeah, that's from John D. Yeah, no changes there. So if you take out a life insurance policy and you place it into trust, remember it's essentially worthless until you die. It's just a bit of paper. Then you die and it pays out, and now we've got cash inside the trust, right? Then the trustees have to do something with that money or pay it out to your loved ones or whatever. But yes, still free of inheritance tax. No changes there. Bladderman. I was going to stagger my lump sum over 5 years to gain more interest. Does this mean I'll be better taking all in one lump sum? Gain more interest? Oh, right. So draw your tax-free cash over 5 years. Well, I don't think it makes any difference. Just don't die within 5 years if you can help it. Again, it seems daft to make a really big tax-free cash decision about inheritance tax when what you actually need it for is to live on, right? So don't let this new spectre of inheritance tax, which God willing won't apply for 30 years, impact your decisions based on the money you need now. I would do what you were planning to do. Doc Lover, have I missed all the Meaningful Academy deals discounts? No. Black Friday weekend. A 4-day extravaganza, lowest price of the year. That was Doc Lover. Tom W. Do you see equity release being used in inheritance tax tool going forward if pensions are included in estates? Definitely. So equity release, allows you to release equity from the value of your house. You can do that in 2 ways. Normally, you can take a mortgage, a lifetime mortgage. That's how people normally do it. You can also do something called a home reversion, where you sell your property for a lot less than it's worth. You get a right to live in it forever, but you sell your property. Yeah, I can see more people considering this. I certainly think advisors will need to consider it. Take the money out. It's a debt on the estate. Maybe give the money away. Right? 7-year rule on that, of course. But do that early enough. And not only have you've reduced your estate, you also reduce your estate because the debt is increasing. So definitely. Hello world. Also, thank you. You've changed my family's life and nieces and nephews' lives. They all have SIPs maxed out in the year they were born. Hey, amazing. Fantastic. Shuggy, can a spousal bypass trust allow pension funds on first death to be set aside into a discretionary trust as a spousal exemption? Yeah, exactly. Either discretionary or a bare trust. So discretionary if you want the trustees to have discretion over to where the money should be paid. Discretionary trusts are expensive though. They pay tax at punitive rates. But the answer to your question is yes, Chuggy. Chris D, I'm 66 next year. Should I take my tax-free cash from my private pension? I'm hoping to just take it in dribs and drabs. I'm looking at drawdown. Reassure pension provider says it doesn't offer that. Reassure's like a bit of a zombie life insurance company, so it's a sort of collection of old other life insurance companies. Worrying number of viewers on the call. So waiting to be struck down by lightning, or the abyss to open up. No, it's just a horrible carpet. So it reassures a bit of a limitation factor here, Chris. So you can transfer your pension to another provider, though, who will do the dribs and drabs sort of flexible options that you're thinking about. Oh, thank God, there's 667 of us on the call now. So, just change your provider. It's dead easy to transfer a pension. I've done videos on that. Just be careful that there's no added sort of little hidden benefits on your reassured pension, like enhanced tax-free cash or guaranteed annuity or anything like that. But I'm not going to answer your should I take my tax-free cash from my pension. Long-standing viewers and listeners to Meaningful Money know that I really hate the word should. Usually there's very rarely, it's an odd sentence, there's very rarely a single thing that you should do. More often there's many options and you need to weigh them. And of course I don't know your individual situation, so I can't answer whether you should take your tax-free cash or not. If you were hoping to take it in dribs and drabs, presumably you had reasons for that. I don't think that's changed. Presuming you're not going to die in the next 20 years, hopefully. So live first. Use the tools you've got to live well first. Don't compromise your today based on what will happen when you die. Nothing you can do about it then. Live well now. Strangely F. My employer pays by salary sacrifice and passes on the NI savings to me. As NI goes up, should I expect to get an uplifted in what gets passed on to me? Will I be better off? You can certainly ask them. You've got no expectation. If that's what they've said they'll do, then hold them to it, definitely. James D. Compared to capital gains tax, what's the point of these investment bonds? Yeah, good question. Investment bonds really fell out of favour when capital gains tax rates were low and annual exemptions were high. When you could gain 12,300 quid a year before paying any CGT, twice that if you were in a couple, then there was no real reason to consider investment bonds. Now, even with CGT at 18.24, investment bonds have their place, particularly offshore investment bonds. Essentially what they do is they give you flexibility as to when you incur income tax on them. There is never any capital gains tax on investment bonds. They're in the income tax regime. So they're just another kind of pot, but they totally fell out of favour for years. But they're making a sort of cautious comeback now as rules change. So you need to know about them. I've done videos on them. Renjith, will IHT on pensions be abandoned if Conservatives come back in 5 years? I don't know. Better ask them. Has Kemi named her Shadow Chancellor yet? Be interesting to see. Serena, are they keeping the tax-free pension inheritance on death before 75? Yes, they are, but not inheritance tax-free. Inheritance tax is going to be chargeable, but if you die before age 75, once the IHT has been paid, there's going to be no tax on transfer to the beneficiaries. Right? So that bit hasn't changed. Kithos, is there any reason for an expression of wishes anymore, given it will be captured in the estate via will and probate? I don't think it will. It's valued as part of your estate, but I don't think it's subject to your will. I'm pretty sure that's the case anyway. So yes, there will still be a benefit of expressions of wishes. That's the sort of thing they can't change in legislation. It's just pensions are written under pretty tight law. So I don't think they can kind of undo that and make all pensions from years gone by suddenly, subject to the terms of your will. I don't think they'll be able to do that. Might be wrong. Neil, I plan to draw from a SIP using all my 20% 50 grand threshold. Okay, basic rate. Then give it to the kids. They in turn put it into a SIP and collect the 20% tax relief for themselves. Pet rules apply to living long. Yeah, that's all fine, Neil, assuming that they have got the income to justify those payments. Right? They need net relevant earnings of 100% of what you're planning to put in for them. Ian B, major increase in family investment companies and trusts sounds like they'll become popular. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about FICs. With the... wonder if they'd be impacted by the changes to business relief. To be decided, don't know. Can I take 25%? This is Robert K. Can I take 25% tax-free cash, presumably? Give it to my wife and then give it away to my child. Wife is a lot younger than I. Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, look, when you die and you do all the forms for inheritance tax and everything, if the revenue chooses to challenge, which they can do randomly, it's up to your executors to prove that what they've put in the forms actually happened. So there's no problem really with you doing what you're proposing to. I've no idea whether the revenue will like it or not, in the unlikely event that your wife dies before you do and within 7 years of making the gift. So yes, you can do it. I'm not sure if the revenue would like it, but that's up to your executors to sort out. We're on question number 68 out of currently 120. I don't know that I'm catching up. Voice is dying, I know that much. How are we doing? 8:30. We'll go for another half hour. Ish. Okay, hang on. Lost where I was. Here we go. I've just exercised options in my company today. This is Thel. The company is not yet public. I understand I've taken a gamble. If I sell shares, what tax is owed? I bought at 0.47 a share. So you own the shares now, right? So if you bought at 0.47, if you sell them, any gain over £3,000, which is the annual exempt allowance, will be chargeable at either 18% or 24%, depending on your earnings. So the rules on CGT haven't changed. It's the rates that have changed. Graham B, is it worth storing some wealth in CGT-free gold coins? If you want to, buy a safe. But yeah, why not? Are you worried about CGT? I mean, they will be included in your estate for IHT. But the problem is they're not going to make anything. So they're subject to the gold price, which is volatile. Don't produce an income. Can't spend them. So, I don't like gold as an asset class, really. It doesn't produce anything. It's just like a day-by-day bet. I mean, it's done fine. Do you know what I mean? You'll make money on it. And I don't have any issue with people holding a small amount of their portfolio in gold. It's not for me to have an issue with it anyway. It's your money. But individual gold coins, I'm not sure I'd bother, but do it if you want to. No reason why not. Anoop, if I die over 75, will my children pay inheritance tax and then income tax on withdrawals? Yes, they will. After April 2027, and assuming you're subject to inheritance tax anyway. Alistair Ford, the man, the myth, the legend. Hi, Alistair. Good to have you on the call. Finish that one. So now... pull out the big guns. Okay. If people have enough time to make considered decisions, it's worth going back to what is important and then see how to make it as tax efficient as possible. Lots of people coming at it from the other direction and trying to figure out how to avoid tax first, then figure out what to do with the money. Don't let the tax tail wag the planning dog. This is why I love you, Alistair. You've just said in like 3 succinct sentences what I've spent the last hour saying. But absolutely right. Come back to what's important. I have said that a little bit. Today is important. Inheritance tax when you die is less important. So don't let that unduly affect what you do now. Right? It's like a core message. Any good financial planner will say that. Any good financial coach like Alistair will say that. And I think any intelligent person, when they really sit down and think about it and they let the hysteria and the media garbage over the last few weeks, it's been horrific. It's no wonder we've been caught up in it and people are like, oh my God, I've got to do something, and maybe have regretted it. Or even now think, oh God, this is awful. Massive changes to inheritance tax and must do something about it. Take a breath and remember today's more important than what happens eventually. And we have time yet to plan. So take a breath. Great point, Alistair. You're a legend. Thank you for being here. Kevin C. Pete, sorry if you went over it already. I just arrived. What did you think of the budget? Said a little bit about it. What do you think of Rachel Reeves? I pretty controversially prefer Jeremy Hunt, but what I think about Rachel Reeves is irrelevant, really. I'm going to annoy half the viewers at least, probably more than that, given the demographic. If I say that I liked her, I thought she delivered the speech very well. I thought she was very clear. I think there weren't that many surprises in the budget. Agricultural property relief is the one that makes me most annoyed. I've got loads of friends, family, and clients who are farmers who it is going to impact. And I think it's very short-sighted to attack the industry that feeds the country. Right? So that's the thing I'm most disappointed in. Otherwise, it was all kind of what we figured. I knew she wouldn't mess with tax-free cash. I knew she wouldn't mess with pension tax relief. Those are the things that would have made my life a lot more difficult. All the rest of the stuff can be planned for, right? Doc Lover, is it now possible to use a life insurance placed in trust as a primary asset to pass to beneficiaries instead of a pension? Yeah, I mean, it's always been possible to do that. Remember, life insurance policies generally don't have a value until you die. So it's not an asset, it's a bit of paper. But when you die, it has value. It pays out, right? Oh, I got a dislike. So it's always, that hasn't changed, essentially, Doc Lover. Rules are the same. Mr. E, is there a maximum property value that can be put into a property trust? No. But passing money or assets into trust does have tax implications depending on the type of trust and how you do it. So tread very, very carefully. And please, please don't put your primary residence, your home, into trust. Hi, Pete. Gerardo. I'm investing in stocks and shares, separate ISAs for myself and my wife. I also have SIPs in both our names. I have a GIA with a large sum. Should I open another for my wife? Can do, or you could just make it joint. Right? One less account to deal with. But yeah, you're obviously sharing it equally, between you or carefully between you, so that's good. Ian N. Hi Pete, I've just left my job where they use Nest as the pension provider. Should I still make contributions into it? Also, my new job have their own scheme. Should I join this or start a SIP? Definitely join your new employer's scheme. Look to transfer the Nest pension away and into the new employer scheme. I would start there. Nest pension isn't great. It's a bit expensive. Funds are a bit dicey and don't really like it. But join your new pension scheme, because if you start a SIP, your employer probably won't pay into that, so you'd be just leaving money on the table. But I would look to transfer Nest into the new occupational scheme. Curious J, question 80. Pensions offer the flexibility of spend what I need for retirement and then hand the rest down to the kids without an AST. Now that is set to change, what is the best vehicle to hand wealth down? Another GIA? I mean, my wife is not really interested or is capable with sophisticated financial planning. That's often the case, Curious J. Most couples I've ever dealt with have one party who sort of does the money, and another party who's at best sort of uninterested, less interested, and at worst is completely incompetent when it comes to managing money. Obviously, very often, for instance, those of you who listen to the podcast know Rog, my co-host. I know that on his When I Die file, there's a note on the front that says, take this to Pete. And on mine, there's a note to Joe that says, take this to Rog. Even though Rog is retired now, he will basically sort it all out. Joe's no interest in it. So it's not uncommon for one party to be totally uninterested in the finances, right? That doesn't necessarily mean you need to oversimplify things for them. But I'm a big lover of simplicity anyway. It makes life easier for all concerned. So I think you asked what is the best vehicle to hand wealth down. Best, you need to define best. Most tax efficient, well, there's some business relief investments which are probably going to be the most tax efficient. So, EISs, there's all sorts of options still. But if your wife is really not interested, you probably don't want to give her a lot of really sort of high-risk esoteric tax vehicles. Fire. I don't know why so many are worried about inheritance tax. You'd have to be mega rich to be eligible. Nice problem to have. Yeah, problem is that's not the case now because property and pension funds, even if you only contribute like the minimum, the auto enrollment amount into your pension scheme over a 45-year career, and you're lucky enough to buy a property, pay off the mortgage, you're going to be subject to inheritance tax these days, right? One of the issues with the farm, or if you own a business, the farming, agricultural property relief, now anything over £1,000,000, which is basically a small farmhouse and 50 acres, going to be worth £1,000,000, now going to be subject to inheritance tax. So it's actually many, many more people are becoming subject to inheritance tax. Rachel Reeves made a big thing about not freezing the income tax thresholds any longer than they already were, so April 2028. But then a few sort of paragraphs later, extended the freeze to inheritance tax nil rate bands. So thereby bringing more people into inheritance tax as, values rise, inheritance tax thresholds remain the same, more people pay IHT. So it's a nice problem to have, but more and more people are going to be subject to inheritance tax. Jack J says, Mum has £895,000 life cover. It's in trust. Will I have to pay inheritance tax? No, not if it's in trust. Not on that anyway. Remember, if she takes out life cover to pay inheritance tax, you're not reducing the inheritance tax. She's just providing the means to pay it. But maybe this is just a separate life insurance policy, and it's not about inheritance tax. But if it's in trust, then no, it's not part of her estate, Jack. Curious J, in simple terms, I get 40% tax relief on pension as a high rate taxpayer. This goes to IHT, and additionally, my kids will be charged income tax. Is it even worth considering for passing wealth down? Yeah, definitely, because 40% tax relief now, yeah? Growth on that money, yeah? Yes, maybe 40% income tax, inheritance tax one day. That might change between now and the point you die. As Alistair said earlier on, don't think about the sort of worst case and work back from there as to what you should do. Pensions are still the most tax-efficient vehicle when it comes to putting money away and growing wealth for the future, right? Just because they're now less attractive on death doesn't mean you shouldn't do them. Please hear that. Josephine B, is the £2 million total estate taper shared or per person? It's per person. Yes. Think about that for a minute. How would it work if they're a couple with a main residence and a direct descendant? Well, a lot depends on how their wills are set up, but assuming everything's to each other and then the next, they would get the £1 million, including 2 residence nil rate bands. But if the total estate on the second one is over 2 million, then they sort of gradually lose that. I'm not sure I understand the question. Yes, the £2 million is per person, not shared. Yes, definitely. Glenn M, why didn't the government sell some of its gold reserves rather than raising taxes? They still got any? I thought they got rid of all the gold. I don't know. Chris D, if you take your 254% from your pension, are you allowed to keep 25%? Are you allowed to keep paying into it? Yes, you are, Chris. If you take your 25% from your pension, so just your tax-free cash, yes, you can keep paying into it. You can keep paying into it anyway. You're just limited. If you take any taxable income from a pension, it triggers the money purchase annual allowance, which limits your annual contributions into pensions of $10,000 a year gross. But if you just take the tax-free cash, that does not apply. Glenn, I'm going to come back to your gold reserve questions because I feel I was a little bit short shrift there. So I want to say I have no idea whether the government's got gold reserves or not. So, that's the true answer. I don't know. Why didn't they do that? Right? Well, if they haven't got any, then they couldn't do it. Obviously, they couldn't sell gold reserves. Raising taxes is just the way it's done, isn't it? Stu C, hi Pete, can you confirm if IHT is still taken from a SIP if the 100% beneficiary is a spouse? No, it isn't. No IHT between spouses, ever. Nick S, I'm pulling 20 grand each year tax-free using phased drawdown and sticking into an ISA. So you're taking out from your tax-free cash. I'm at the lifetime allowance, so I won't make any more tax-free in a pension. I don't trust future budgets to reduce the tax-free. Okay. No question there, but, Yeah, I get you thinking. Stephen L. Still paying to DC pots regardless if you have cash, free cash in the bank. Yes, IHT bill would be larger, but your beneficiaries would be left with more net cash. I agree, Stephen. CMDR. Is the plan to take out all pension prior to 75? No. No, no, no. Not unless you have to, but no. Pete, is there much of a difference, this is Kevin C., of having accumulation or distribution shares in an ISA, or is it just pure preference because it's in an ISA? Doesn't really matter because there's no CGT to pay. Some people prefer income or distribution shares in a GIA because they think it's easier to work out the base cost when it comes to capital gains tax. But inside an ISA, Kevin, it doesn't matter. Nick S. Question. If I'm at the lifetime allowance, I see no reason not to transfer 20... Same questions above. Anup. Should I take tax-free cash and put it into a business relief investment? Should. I don't like should. I don't like better. I don't like best. I don't like must. You could, Anup, take tax-free cash and put it into a business relief investment. All right? It would be outside your estate or zero rated for IHT within 2 years. And as long as it's less than £1 million, which it will be, then that will still apply after April 26. SRW also almost reached 25% max tax-free cash limit on 4 DB pensions. Planning to invest in a home and double the value of the investment. Bought a house 10 years ago, so it's in need of massive upgrade. Thoughts? I can't talk about individual situations, but then you just said don't put a house into a trust. I'm just about to sign one. Why shouldn't I? So why wouldn't I put a house that I live in into a trust? Fundamentally, it removes it from your ownership. Remember, a trust is its own its own tax entity. Okay, but I'm a trustee, so I'm still in control, right? Well, yeah, I get that. But a house is going to be more complicated to sell if it's in a trust. I just don't know why you would do that, right? Given that you are living in the house, you retain a benefit. So it has no inheritance tax benefits, putting it in a trust. The reason most people put their own property into a trust is to avoid care fees, all right? The problem is the local authority can take one look at that transaction and just set it aside and treat it as if it never happened and make you pay for your care fees anyway. Secondly, if it works for care fees planning, and it does sometimes, then you're now at the mercy of the local authority as to where you are putting care. It could be like 90 miles from home, near where your family are. So you're going to, waste away, lonely, miles away from your family in a home that's nowhere near where they are. So I don't know why you would give up control of your future like that. Okay? People say, what if I give my house to my kids? Don't ever do that, right, while you're still living in it. All right, kids get divorced, it's part of their settlement, and you could be kicked out. So I just don't know why anybody would relinquish control of their own home if they didn't have to. So I hope that answers the question, SRW. Feel free to come back. Steve K, are gilts still exempt from CGT? Yes, if you hold them directly. London Man, when is it worth taking DB pension at 55 with a discount rather than at 60? Depends on your circumstances. If you can cope with a lesser amount, the point is you're going to die at the same time, right? So you either have a less amount for longer or a higher amount for less long. Do the maths, right? But the idea is that the reduction from taking it at 55 should basically make that up, and you should end up with roughly the same by the time you die. Okay? So why would you do it early? If you wanted to retire, like literally stop working, and you can take a pension at 55, even though it's a smaller amount, but maybe, that will provide you like a baseline income, and you do some kind of go-go job for 2 days a week just to keep things ticking over, and you essentially are retired, but you've got this baseline income from 55. That's when I think about doing it. As Alistair said in his comment earlier on, which I really wish I could pin on the screen, when would you do it? if your goals for your life meant that that was a good way of meeting those goals, that's when I would do it. This is a question from Peter M. It's not me. Hi, Pete. I'm close to taking early retirement at age 59. I have 2 different defined benefit pensions and 1 current DC pension fund. When I retire, should I delay drawing from my DB schemes? Again, should. I'm not answering an individual circumstances question. Kevin C. Pete, random question, but how is your old car doing? Kevin's referring to a very old video about buying a car without finance. Very old video. I now lease an electric Mini through my company because it's tax efficient to do so, Kevin. And I love it with all my heart. Question number 99. Paul W. I'm 50 years old and I only have 132 grand in my pension. It's not bad, Paul. It's not bad. Keep going. Taking dental insurance as part of my work benefits for 1 year and then I can cancel it. Okay, has dropped my pension contributions from 10 to 6. If I invest the shortfall for myself, would I make less than the 10% going to my work pension pot? I think that's a salary sacrifice question, isn't it? So you're going to swap pension contributions for dental insurance. Okay, I imagine you've got a big ton of dental work coming, which I'm very sorry to hear, despite the smile on my face. That's no fun, so I can totally understand you doing that. So I guess that means that you've dropped your pension contribution. And that's probably salary sacrifice. You give up some of your salary sacrifice, you get the dental insurance, probably. If I invest the shortfall myself, would I make less than the 10% going? No, you'd make the same, wouldn't you? You can still sacrifice. You can either sacrifice more, or you could just make a contribution from your taxed income if you want, make it up and get the tax relief. So it probably works out broadly the same. James B. Is this the end of pensions being held in trust, i.e. the end of expressions of wishes? Is it inside the estate now, so should be determined by the will? I think that's still to be confirmed, James. London Man. How can you make life insurance payments tax deductible? You can't. Not personal ones, anyway. There are certain circumstances where you can take out life insurance through a limited company, but it's got to benefit the company. Not really my area, that, but you can't make insurance payments tax deductible. If you could, you would pay tax on the benefit, which you probably don't want to do because the numbers are bigger. CMDR. At what estate value do you think it's worth getting professional advice or trusts? Yeah, good question. I don't know if there's a number on that because I think everybody's circumstances are different. The whole premise of Meaningful Money is that you don't need an advisor to sort your pensions out. You don't need an advisor to invest for you. That's all the easy stuff, right? Where I still have a job is helping sort of tie all these individual threads together of complex estates. So I think if there's quite a lot of moving parts, you might want to seek advice. Remember, you don't have to seek advice for the rest of your life. You can seek it for a period of time, tidy things up, and then go it alone. If you've got money in different jurisdictions, different countries, it's probably worth seeking advice. If you've got complexities like, you're a non-dom or, mega high earner or whatever, then you might want to consider seeking advice. You should seek advice if you don't have the time or inclination to do this stuff yourself. Just because you can, and I believe anybody can do this stuff themselves, doesn't mean that everybody's got the time or inclination to do so. So if you don't, then it's worth paying somebody else to do it, right? Just like I pay somebody else to wash my car. I don't have the time or the inclination to wash my car. So I go down and pay a very nice chap to do 12 quid to do a really good job on the outside of my car. Fire, just because you mentioned trusts, I hear a lot of folk getting exercised about family farms not being able to be passed on without IST. Are trusts a way around this? Potentially, Fire. Potentially, I think there's lots of hand-wringing going on about this, but there's also some very bright people in my network on LinkedIn, far brighter than I am. Agriculture specialist accountants and lawyers and stuff, looking at, actually think, well, the agricultural property relief allowance is per person, right? So it's potentially 2 million quid between a husband and wife. Trusts as well, right? They have their own allowance. So, the combination of individuals carving up farms, a trust as well, maybe, he might be able to shelter several million from inheritance tax. But it'll cost you a ton of money in of accountancy and legal fees to do, but probably a lot less in that than the actual tax payable. So, Kevin C. Pete, when can we expect a sequel to your Meaningful Money Handbook? You heard it here first, Kevin. Great question. 6th of May 2025, the Meaningful Money Retirement Guide comes out, published by Harriman House. I literally signed off on the manuscript today, made a couple of tweaks post-budget. It's gone to typesetters today. 6th of May 2025 is release date. Join the Meaningful Money mailing list, and I'm going to need like a ton of you to pre-order. So thanks in advance for that. Great question, Kevin. Mike A. Could lifestyle trusts become popular due to offering some level? Lifestyle trust be good due to still offering access? I've never heard of the phrase lifestyle trust, Mike. So you might be talking about something I don't understand, or it might be a different jurisdiction. Not sure. Sport Murphy. How can I transfer money from my pension to my wife's pension to utilise two personal allowances when withdrawing from both pensions? You can't. Wish you could, but you can't. Precious. As someone still in their 20s, is it now worth putting money in a lifetime ISA over a pension after employer match to have a tax-free pot that can then be used to either reduce tax or give away at 60? Totally, Precious. I would still... Yeah, I would do that. I would pay a pension up to employer match. Certainly if you're a basic rate taxpayer, I would. Then max your lifetime ISA. Thereafter, get back into pensions. If you're a high rate taxpayer, it's still going to be more beneficial to pay into a pension because of the tax relief now. Ideally, do both. Easy to say, I know. Arshid, do you think the government could one day tax ISA accounts? Nah, I doubt it. I mean, they could. They can do anything. But bear in mind, ISAs have been around. Well, ISAs have been around since 1997. Prior to that, there was PEPs and TESAs. Shows you how old I am. So there's always been some kind of tax-advantaged savings account, investment account. That is not going to change. Paul W. With the increase in CGT rates, do you foresee an increase in demand for investment bonds? Yes, mentioned that quite near the start. Yes, I don't think it'll be like it's rapidly increasing demand, but I think there will be more demand. Anup, could the pension being subject to IHT be reversed? Yep. Anything can be reversed. Not sure whether it will or not, but it can. DP, please can we invest in your health and ask that you stop soon to get better so that we can benefit from your generous help for many years rather than questioning you into an early grave. Thank you, Harry. You're very kind. I'm okay. I actually feel fine. It's just my head's full of cold. But you're very kind. Thank you. Anup, can we transfer QROPS and escape IHT? To be decided. One thing she mentioned in the budget speech is that she wants to make inheritance tax sort of a residence thing. So if you transfer to a QROPS, which is a overseas pension scheme, you won't avoid it if you're still in the UK when you die, though. I don't believe so anyway. Julian's question about newborn investment. Grandparents using investment into bear trusts in addition to junior ISAs. Yes, that's definitely a possibility. We are actually, right, cool dude. I'm not sure, actually. Let me just try something. Oops. Can you still hear me? Yes. Sorry. Yeah, you can. Sorry. I've managed to start playing the live thing on another window on my thing. I was trying to see if I could turn off the comments. I don't think I can. Nick, can you see if you can turn off the comments? You might be able to. Because I've got like another dozen or so, and then we'll call it a day, I think. Let's have a look. Now that pension is considered an IHT, what changes? Should I withdraw from my pension until the threshold is reached, and then from GIA? Should I just put everything in a trust? There's no should, Salvatore, no should. Think it through carefully. Remember, pensions are not in IHT yet. You've got time. Mike says, hi, Pete, you look as handsome as ever. Smooth talker. I remember one of your first vids outside near the sea. Really? First one was near the sea. It was on Battery Rocks in Penzance in like October 2009, I think. Good grief. 15 years ago. Amazing. I'm a lot grayer now. Is it best to mitigate the IHT liability by using a combination of insurance, gifts, and BPR? Yeah, absolutely. I think this is all going to call for us to be a bit more nuanced, right? So I think you're dead right. Barry says 685 watching, but only 125 likes. Press the like button, folks. Press the like button. 73 years old and have learnt more since watching Pete than anything else in 8 years of retirement. I'm delighted, Barry. Thank you. I'm glad it's been helpful. Stu C. If an offshore bond is outside one's estate with growth tax-free and 5% capital withdrawals, why would anyone set up an onshore bond whose growth is subject to annual income tax and annual tax returns? An offshore bond is not outside your estate, Stu. It is if you put it into trust, but so is an onshore bond. Right? So, generally speaking, offshore bonds make more sense than onshore bonds for the reasons that you say, but not for inheritance tax. Nick, hi Pete, I'm at the lifetime allowance, so it looks beneficial to move. We've done that. Large cash pot and an OKDC pot. Take which first on pension drawdown situation? Depends on your individual situation. Sorry, Andrew, can't answer that. Rick B, I've been paying into a SIP ISA and paying additional off mortgage, but I feel like life is slow and progress isn't as fast as I'd like. Should I focus on one rather than spreading my investments? Yeah, I know this. I know. I've felt your pain. I've done this. And I do this. I still overpay the mortgage. I've got like less than 4 years left now. And I pay into a SIP and ISA. It does feel slow. Look, I mean, get as much tax relief in your SIP as you can. Have a decent ISA pot because it's handy to be able to dip into that if you absolutely need to. And then go all in on the mortgage. Get rid of it as soon as possible, right? Particularly with rates where they are now. It's good for the soul. The fact that you've asked the question, it feels slow, suggests that you just want rid of that mortgage, so go all in on it. Jeff, well done, Pete, in your generous session tonight. Would you rather feel ill and speak to a load of people interested in what you're saying, or feel amazing but talk to people who aren't bothered? This is totally energizing. I love doing these live things. It properly keeps you on your toes, but people are very generous, and so I love talking to you guys. I'd rather feel well and do this. I haven't had a cold for about 2 years, so it's really annoying. I hate being ill. Hi, Pete. My pension pot is much larger than my wife's, and she would need this if I were to pass away early. I assume she would still get 100% without paying any IHT. Yes, she would. Don't worry. Why was the extra stamp duty on buy-to-let introduced overnight, and this overnighting a worry for the future? Yeah, not just buy-to-lets, but second homes generally. So it's a very popular move down in Cornwall. Where young people really challenging to get onto the ladder. Overnighting has always happened. There's always been some stuff that happens on budget day. Hit the like button. We're going in the last sort of 5-10 minutes, folks. So hit the like button for me. Is it now unattractive to make pension contributions as a basic rate taxpayer? Should we now draw down on pensions before ISAs and contribute to ISAs before pensions? No to all of that. Connor, keep going. Pension's still beneficial. If charity bequests, says Simon Porcaro, if charity bequests are excluded from IHT, could you set up a charity that's remit is to help the kids and grandkids be an option? Nope. Sort of tongue-in-cheek. I doubt the Charity Commission would pass that. I have a son for medical reasons will need to rely on the inheritance he receives. Can I invest in income-producing investments and gift him excess income, thus avoiding CGT and inheritance tax? Yes, you can. Martin. David B. Apologies if already asked, but I'm looking into surplus gift income. Does drawdown from SIP count as income or return of capital for this purpose? Drawing down from a SIP counts as income, but it needs to be regular. So try and help the revenue out. Remember, the gift from income exemption is claimed after you die. So help your executors out. Take a regular amount from your SIP. It doesn't have to be monthly, but it needs to be regular. And then gift out of that, right? I had to double check this, but I'm pretty certain that it does qualify as income for gifting, right? So I'm like 99.9% certain. But I did have to look it up. Whereas regular withdrawals from a GIA or an investment bond would not. David B. Apologies. Looking to gift. Yes, it does. John H. Is a living trust a good idea, or does this only limit care fees? I don't like No, I don't like putting property in living trusts. I don't like family protection trusts, or asset protection trusts and stuff like that. Giving money into a trust in your lifetime may be a good idea. You just need to understand the implications. Trusts are expensive to run, and they're generally punitively taxed if they're discretionary. Philip B. I'm early 30s and in the 40% income tax banding, looking to invest 300 to 500 each month. With long-term investment in mind, is maximising deposits into a SIP or stocks and shares ISA more sensible? Do both. Pick a split that works for you. Kevin, hi Pete. My son is severely disabled. How can I protect him best when we both die? Sorry, Kevin, that's a tough deck of cards you've been dealt. And thank you for wishing me to get better soon. This is obviously a specialist area. Your son is vulnerable, and so having a trust for him would normally make very good sense. Okay, a bear trust specifically for his benefit. It removes a lot of the high costs of discretionary trusts. Obviously, you want somebody you really trust to be trustees of that going forward. So you might want to consider a professional trustee. But I think you need to speak to a good lawyer experienced in this sort of matter, really, where you've got vulnerable beneficiaries. So, yeah, good luck with that. Seek professional advice. Hi, Pete. Stamp duty increased threshold lowering seems only to apply to England. Oh, I didn't know that. Any ideas on whether we'll follow suit here in Wales? Sorry, Giraffe. I don't know that. Sorry if you waited like an hour and a half for me to answer a question with I don't know. But I didn't know that was only applied to England. I guess you need to ask the Welsh Assembly. Nearly there. Hi, Pete. William S. From a drawdown strategy, I have an onshore bond, ISA, cash savings together with personal pension scheme. Which is best to draw down first? Depends on your individual circumstances. But having that flexibility, having those options from which to draw will really serve you well. Vibav, what do you suggest for buy-to-let investors given the current scenario for stamp duty hike and more capital gains and corporation tax? I can't answer that. I just think this is, property is great and everything, but it's singularly tax inefficient. That's why I don't hold any other than my home. I don't hold property as an investment because it's crap for tax, right? I'd far rather have a pension and an ISA and a GIA and stuff, all of which I can do much more useful stuff with. But look, that's a question for a property specialist, which I ain't, I'm afraid. Hi, I own a house solely and put it out for rent. The rent will take me into 40% bracket. How do I utilise my spouse who does not work a tax code? Put her on the property. I think she has to own the property. You can't just sort of give her some of the rent. I think so. Accountancy question, really, that. What GI equity sum gets very tax efficient? Now CGT is 18-24%. ISA and SIP are maxed, low coupon bonds covered. What GIA sum should make me look into alternatives? I don't know. I don't think there's a sort of magic number. If there is, I don't know what it is yet. I dislike fees and performance. Yeah. I don't think there's an answer to that question. I think you need to understand that, the both of them, or all the options, and then work out which is best. And choose your poison. You either get better tax efficiency in a VCT and all that sort of stuff, but you pay your fees and you get the investment volatility, or you get less tax efficiency within the GIA, but they're much lower costs, much easier to run, all that sort of stuff. Choose your poison. 3 to go. Is it best to use up the cash in the defined contribution scheme first before touching any pension scheme drawdown? Again, I don't like the word best. Maybe. Depends on your circumstances. Cool dude. Is it still viable for outside IR35 contractors to set up their own limited company? Don't know. Accountancy question, that really. Cool dude. Really sorry. Not really my bag, that. I need to look at IR35, but it's not something that I'm very aware of. Hi, Pete. Your comment that you don't need an advisor to manage your pension. Why do all the providers insist you have an advisor sign off on any transactions? Not any transactions. Under law, there are certain transactions that have to be signed off by an advisor. The main one is a transfer of a DB scheme where the transfer value is over £30,000. Sometimes if there are safeguarded benefits on a DC pension or a GMP, guaranteed minimum pension, if it's a Section 32, these are the sort of complex area of pensions. Pension provider may insist that you seek advice. But generally speaking, for most of us who just have ordinary DC pensions and, we have one with one job and then we leave that job and go to another one and we don't want to leave this pension sort of lingering there. We want to transfer it into the new scheme or into a SIP or whatever. You don't need an advisor for that. It's the reason I still have a job is that there is enough still complexity. 2 reasons. There's still enough complexity in the whole financial services world to justify my existence. And secondly, there's still plenty of people who don't have the time or inclination to do this stuff. Even though they can, they just don't want to. And so I have a job. Okay. Look, folks, I'm going to call it a day there. There's 3 more come in. Sparrow 4, increased employer NI contribution. If my employer passes NI savings into me, will it increase? It could do. Raising the minimum wage and raising national insurance will surely just fuel inflation again. Just seeing this, so saying hello. Maybe, Nick, yeah, we'll see. Potentially it could be inflationary. If you take 25% tax-free cash, except for an annuity, does the removal make you exempt from an annuity? No, it doesn't, Paul. You can take tax-free cash, go into drawdown with the rest, buy an annuity later on if you want. Right? Pensions are still flexible. So I think that's it. That was 143 questions in 101 minutes. It's not bad going. So I'm going to sign off now. I'll just skip to the bottom of the comments. So look, thanks for everybody for joining. We were up as high as 680 people. We're still 560 odd on the thing. So let me just mention Meaningful Academy. Like I say, Black Friday is coming. So the best deal of the year is happening at the end of November over the Black Friday weekend. So stay tuned for that. Financial Foundations is free all year round, though. That's the sort of, get started, get out of debt, learn how to budget, the basics of insurance, stuff like that. That's free anyway. So check out meaningfulacademy.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and listen to the podcast. Just trying to get as much decent information out there and hopefully to stay away from the sort of, guesswork and sort of hyperbole around personal finance. For me, money is a tool. You just need to use it wisely and work the system as best you can. The problem, except it's the reason I have a job, is that the system is a moving target. And so you've got to stay on top of this stuff. So from my point of view, I'll sort of, for the rest of my days, do what I can to, help you navigate the system. But look, keep in touch. Thank you so much for all of your time tonight. I really appreciate you joining me. I've really enjoyed it. I'm going to go to bed soon. All right. Cheers. Really appreciate it. Take care. And thank you. Everybody say thank you to Nick for doing amazing moderation. Cheers. Have a good night all.